warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin Sayyidina wa habibina wa syafi'ina wa nuri qulubina wa qurrati a'yunina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim. Wa nata'allama wa ta'lim wa tadhakkura wa tazkir wa naf'a wa intifa' wal ifadah wal istifadah wal hatha ala tamassuki بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني مشرب الصوفي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصوفي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدنيا مشرب الصافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. Amin. Alhamdulillah. The last lesson we were discussing, we were here on page number correct, on page number 91, right, and about najis. Talking about najis, and najis that is ma'fu anhu, right? So najis that is pardoned, right? So we actually reached the part about blood that is little, right? So about najis that is pardoned. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So he says here, except when a garment is containing filth, as stated above, is spread, or it carries filth not out of necessity. Therefore, it is forgiven if the filth is little, but it is compulsory to be purified if it's a lot, right? So going back to the previous part, right, about the filth of flies, bats. The filth of flies means that the excretion of flies. It's very difficult to avoid it if you live in an environment where there are many flies. So when I was in Tarim, we had many flies. Flies during the summertime everywhere. You can't even sleep because they're just everywhere. And you actually witness them excreting because there's so many of them. So you witness them, you see them mating, you see them excreting, you see them. So it's something that there is, I guess maybe in our society in Singapore we're not so exposed to. We see the random fly right here and there, but I don't think we actually have, like, like in Tarim, you can have like 20 flies in your kitchen. 20, 30 flies, like 40 flies in your kitchen at any one go. And when you go to the room and sleep, you have to really cover your face, because otherwise they will just be like all over your face. That's the situation in a lot of third world countries, and also a lot of countries whereby there is agriculture, right? So a lot of flies, right? So the excretion of flies is a real problem. It's everywhere, right? So it's unavoidable, right? So all of these najis, when we say ma'fu anhu, like what is meant is that these are considered as najis. They are najis, the excretions of animals, right? But it's just that because it's so difficult to avoid, right? It's so difficult to avoid that it becomes forgiven, right? Because of living in environments whereby this najis cannot be avoided. So bad urine also, like, so in Singapore, like, what bad, what urine, right? And then there's no bad urinating on your stuff, right? But or on your clothing. Right, and also on top of that, in the past, especially in the time of Rasulullah, the people, they usually had only one piece of clothing or two pieces of clothing. They were poor people. But for us, whenever you have, like, najis on your clothing, you just change your clothing, and you wear something that's fresh. Right? But in that time, right, they just have one or two pieces of clothing, and so if it keeps getting najis on it, how are you going to pray? Right? It's going to be hard to pray. Right? So bad urine is basically I actually don't know how it looks like and what it's all about, right? But bad urine has apparently it is common, like in the time of Rasulullah SAW, especially amongst the Bedouins, right, that they would get bad urine on their clothing, right? So then it would just be ma'fu anhu, right? It's forgiven because, and so all of these things that are forgiven, right, for the one who's unable to avoid it. And they are forgiven for the one who is unable to avoid it. If you are able to avoid it, right, then it holds the ruling of najis. Okay. Urine from one. Just remember the story. Allahu alam, right? But bad there's a story, of a wali, whereby what his kashaf is wali, side story. Right? So basically he, he was with a student once. Then he turned to one of his students, all of a sudden, out of nowhere. He turned to one of his students and he said to his student, you know, I bet urine is ma'fu anhu. Bet urine is forgiven, right? And that's because it's unavoidable. Then he said, and I'll tell you one thing, that bet money looks a lot like human money. Random information, eh? Alright, so the money of a bat, never knew that. Alright, but the money of a bat, the sexual fluid of a bat, is a lot like human sexual fluid. Remember that. So the student was like, okay, interesting, interesting information, and the sheikh, thereafter he passed away. So one day, the student, he went out of town studying. Right, when he came back, he went to his back to his home. He entered his house, his room, right? And then no. The story is that the student went studying, overseas studying. So when he was in his place, but he was studying, when he became like a judge, right, over the people, there was this man that came up, to the court, to present a case, and this man had accused his wife of adultery, fornication or adultery. So this student, now he's a qadi, he's a judge. He was like, "What's your proof?" That because the wife denies it. The wife said, "No, I've never cheated on my husband. I've never. He's just, he's making claims about me." And then the husband says, "No, I have proof. I have proof that she's unfaithful." Right? So the qadi says to him, "What's your proof?" And the husband said, "Come with me, I'll show you the proof." Right? So they went to the person's house, right in the bedroom, right next to the bed. Right? The person points to the floor and says, "See, there's money, stains of money on the floor." Right? Sexual emissions of a man on the floor, and it's not mine. Because I've been overseas, I've been traveling all the while. I came home and I found this on the floor. Right? And then the qadi turns to the wife and says to the wife, "What do you have to say about this?" And she said, "I do have no idea how it got there. Right? But I swear by Allah, I'm not unfaithful to my husband. I swear by Allah, I don't know how someone's money could have come to my bedroom next to my bed." And then this qadi, he suddenly remembers something his sheikh said years ago, that the money of a bat is like money of a human being. So he looked up to the ceiling, and he saw there was like a broken part of it was a wooden ceiling with a broken part. So he was like, "Break that wall, break that ceiling. Let's see what's behind it." So they went there and they broke it, and sure enough, there were a whole lot of bats in the ceiling. They were all living in the ceiling. And then he said, "The money of bats is like the money of human beings." Right? So what you're seeing here is not a human being, it's a bat. Right, so then she was freed lah. Then she was freed from the accusation. But interesting, when these are all stories of the awliya and then the kashaf, and then so the sheikh would just right at him and said to him, remember that the money of a bat is the money of a human being." So now you have interesting information. You can tell people the money of a bat is like the money of a human being. So when are you going to see a bat, and when are you going to see the money of a bat? Same thing like when you're going to see the urine of a bat. And in Singapore, I don't know. In my life, I've never seen the urine of a bat. In case it happens to you, and then you see, and then useful information, you have to free the woman from punishment, of adultery, because adultery is stoning to death. This punishment of adultery, right? But in Islam, the money on the floor is not enough as evidence. It's not enough as evidence. But if the husband really wants to accuse her, then he can swear by Allah that what he's saying is true. And in the Sharia of Islam, he will swear by Allah 3 times, and then on the 4th time he will say, "And if I am lying, then may the curse of Allah be on me." Right? And then the wife will have to do the same thing. And so if his husband and wife accusing each other, the wife will say, "You will swear by Allah 3 times." And on the 4th time, she will say, "And if I am lying, may the anger of Allah be on me." Very seram, this kind of things. So someone who does that must be very sure they're not lying. Subhanallah. So anyway, continuing. Right, so the urine from the one who has urinal incontinence, So when she wears like an adult diaper, or some sort of padding, and the urine keeps coming out, so it's unavoidable. Again, they all of these things are on the basis of being unavoidable, right? So that the najis is ma'fu anhu only for the person who, to whom it is unavoidable, right? So the urine of that person who has incontinence, right? If for some reason or other that urine were to come onto me, it's not my urine, nor do I have incontinence, right? So that urine is najis. It is najis. So on that account, right, if someone has urinal incontinence or if someone has istihada, when they are praying, they should be very careful not to rest their weights on the person next to them. They should be careful not to do that, right? Because if they were, for example, you do a tahiyah and you do a tawarruk sitting, right? Sometimes you might sit on the foot of the person next to you, correct? When you do the tawarruk, kind of sitting down, the last tahiyah, right? So if someone's on istihada or incontinence, she needs to be very vigilant and not rest her weight on anybody else, because if she rests her weight on anybody else, then the person next to her is counted as someone carrying najis, right? And then the prayer will be nullified, and she's at fault. Right? So of course you won't know if the person next to you is having istihada or not, right? I mean, or I think you're not incontinence. The one who knows it, the one who has it, has to be very careful, vigilant. Don't pray in such a way where your weight is rested on somebody else. As far as possible, take the end of the saf, the last guy in the saf, right? So that you don't actually rest on anybody else, or sit on your own thighs and don't go to the side, so you might so you can avoid being on anybody else. Because the blood of the one woman on istihada, it is only ma'fu anhu for you, and for the one with istihada, it is forgiven for the person itself only and nobody else. So she on istihada, she needs to avoid being too close to somebody else when they are praying, right? So as not to rest the weight on that person. Water that originates from wound, right? So that is also forgiven, because that water is a form of blood. Right? So if you have a wound and then let's say like this fluid that falls out, it's colorless fluid that comes out, right? Then it's first forgiven because it's unavoidable, right? Unavoidable. Blisters that change in smell, unavoidable, and whatever that is little or a lot, above that is little or a lot, is forgiven, right? So it's forgiven if it's unavoidable. So even if it's a lot, like, it's unavoidable. You can't help it. You can't help it. So even if someone is having istihada and like really having heavy flow istihada, and this happens, right? If a person, for example, if a woman did not finish 15 days of purity, right? So from a previous menses to her next menses, she's less than 15 days, maybe about 13 days of purity. She has 2 more days to go to finish the 15 days of purity. Then her menses comes. Right, so on the 13th day or 12th day, her menses comes, and usually those days are the heaviest days, right? So she could be heavily bleeding from herself and continuously and heavily bleeding, but she has no choice but to continue her prayer and her fasting if it's Ramadan, because she must, no matter what, she must complete the 15 days of purity. Right, so even if a woman were to say, when I during the last month cycle, right, the brown ended on the 10th day. Then from the 10th day to the 15th day, it was all yellow, right? But it stopped short of the 15th day. That means it's all within 15 days. So she said, okay, so the whole thing I counted it as menses because it was less than 15 days. Then she said, but during my clean period, on the 13th day, full fresh blood came out. I got full fresh blood. And so I'm thinking that maybe the yellow of the previous cycle was not actually menses, right, but it was istihada. Because had I been clean on the 10th day, then means my next month menses is clear of the 15 days. Think about it, kan? I mean you can think of it that way, right? Like if I had not waited for the yellow to finish, I would have finished on the 10th day, correct? So that extra 5 days would have been days of purity. Right, and then plus 13 days that comes after that, that is way more than 15 days. So when my new fresh blood comes around, that's menses, right? So but even so, our teachers will say you cannot combine 2 cycles. Right, so if you have finished 1 cycle and you have bathed from the cycle is done. It's over. So you can't say, I think that the yellow was the istihada, and then this few days of fresh blood is the real menses. So I'm going to go into menses now, and maybe I will cover those 5 days after this menses. No, scholars say no. Once a cycle ends and a new cycle begins, a new cycle begins. Right, so it's still less than 15 days, and you can't like count backwards and then try and cut paste here and there. No, you can't. Right, so it's still, you have to go and still pray and fast, even though it's super heavy flow. You still have to. Right, so it's why they say it's forgiven whether it's little or a lot. Right, so and a lot can be like really full on menstrual flow, but it's istihada. Except when a garment containing filth, as stated above, is spread, or it carries filth not out of necessity. Therefore, it is forgiven if the filth is little, but it is compulsory to be purified if it is a lot. Right. So if the garment, right, containing the filth is spread, so meaning let's say for example on istihada, so having a lot of blood, from istihada, and so on istihada you need to hashu, you need to ta'attaf, right? You need to basically plug your private parts. You need to basically put a padding, right, over it to prevent any leakage. Right, so but if this blood, for example, were to seep through the clothing, right, and then as you sit, right, it seeps through all the way, right, to your ankles. Like for example, if you sit on your own feet, right? If you sit on your own feet, right, it's possible that the blood seeps all the way through because really heavy flow, and you didn't do enough to actually prevent it from overflowing. Right, and it seeps through your clothing, it seeps through the calves, right? It seeps all the way to another part of the body. So it has spread, it's moved from place to place. Right, so if it's spread, then it's no longer forgiven. And it's no longer forgiven. Now, okay, so I hope that one is clear. So what is little is forgiven, right? But it's compulsory to be purified if it's a lot. Right? If it's a lot and it has moved, and you need to clean up. Right? If it's forgiven if the blood is little from others, excluding dogs and pigs. Right? It is forgiven if the blood is from someone else, but it's little. It's little meaning like a drop, and you can't actually detect it. You can't actually see the blood, right, that is there. The one is forgiven. Same thing like when you smack a mosquito or something like that, and there's a tiny blood stain. So you wash it, and you're like, so tiny blood still there. Well, it's forgiven, but you must wash it and try to get rid of it. Okay, same thing when you squeeze your pimple, blood coming out. Right, when you kill a flea, like you have all this is all forgiven if it's a small amount, right, not a large amount. Okay, it's not forgiven if it's from the skin. It's from the skin from a flea, and it's like, right. So ولا يعفى عن جلد برغوث ونحوه. Right. So if it's if the blood is from the flea sucks your blood, right? So fleas do. They suck your blood. So the flea runs around on your body, and the flea somehow or other wipes the blood on other parts of the body. It's a problematic flea, right? So the flea kind of like spreads the blood all over your body, right? So the blood is on the flea itself, right? So the one is not forgiven. You can remove it, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. So basically the rule of thumb is that whatever you're able to remove. Whatever you're unable to remove, it's difficult to remove, then that one is forgiven. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Let me see if I missed out anything. Allahumma salli wa sallim bari alayh. Okay, of the there are three conditions when it comes to najis that comes out of part of your body. There are three conditions by which this najis is ma'fu anhu, whereby this najis is forgiven. There are three conditions. Write it down. The first condition is that it does not mix with anything else, right? So that, for example, you have blood from a pimple, you squeeze and pimple come out, right? So as long as the blood stays there, it's not going to mix with anything else, it's ma'fu'an, it's forgiven. But say, for example, like you squeeze your pimple and blood comes out, right? And then you begin to cry for some reason, like you cry. And so when you cry, your tears go past the blood and bring the blood down. Okay, so now your tears are mixed with the blood. Okay, your tears are mixed with the blood, so then there's a mixture already, so that it's no longer ma'fu'an. It has to be purely that najis that is by there by itself. Same thing with istihaba. If istihaba, if there's a mixture of istihaba with urine, and that's not ma'fu'an. Right, so it should, so the first one, that it shouldn't be mixed. Second one, it should not go beyond. It should not go beyond where it's supposed to be. So if for example you have pimple that you squeeze it, the blood's there, right? Don't touch it. Right. So if you touch and you move it to your finger, now this blood is najis. You have to wash it off. If you're praying and you touch your face and you see there's blood, you touching your face nullify your prayer. If you left it where it was, you wouldn't nullify your prayer. Same thing with nosebleed. If there's nosebleed from your nose, you feel there's a warmth coming out, right? Don't touch. Finish your prayer first. For as long as the blood stays where it is, right, it's not going to nullify your prayer. But the moment you wipe it and you look at your hands, you see the blood over there, nullified. by wiping, the wiping nullified the prayer. Because you moved it to another place, right? So it didn't go beyond its position, right? And also that you didn't cause for it to happen. You didn't cause for it to happen, right? So for example, you're praying, and while praying, there's a big pimple on your face. While praying, you for some reason you go and squeeze the pimple, right? While you're praying, not before prayer, but while you're praying, you go and squeeze the pimple. So the pimple bursts, and then blood starts coming out while you're praying. Right? So it was done by someone. Right? So if it's done by someone on purpose, then that blood that you caused to come out of yourself, that blood is not forgiven. But if, let's say, before you pray and squeeze the pimple, and then it bursts, right? So then blood comes out. You wash it, you wash it. The blood kind of stops. While you're praying, the blood comes back out. And that's not done by you, and it came out by itself after that. Okay, so the three conditions whereby it's still ma'fu anhu. Okay, so for example, the example they give here is that picking on a scab. Okay, so you have a scab, like you have like an injury, then your body forms a scab. No, a scab, right? The brown thing that forms in your body when you are injured. Right, so your body forms a scab. While you're praying, you go and pick on the scab. Okay, so like gatal kan. Right, so you're praying and then the scab here on your hand. Then while you're praying, you just copy. You begin to pick on it. You pick, and you pull it off. And then blood comes out. Like, why do you have to do that, right? So the blood comes out, ma'fu anhu or not ma'fu anhu. You picked it off. Should have left it there by itself. Don't mess with the scab. Okay. And that's an example, So if someone were to pick off, were to pick off the scab. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Okay. Okay. So then the next one, if a person prayed with filth on him, either in a state of forgetfulness or ignorance, he has to repeat his prayer. It's not forgiven. It's not forgiven. Right? If he prays, so if you pray, and then after you pray, someone says to you, "Hey, while you're praying, I could see some blood stains on you," or while you're praying, I saw a dead fly on your clothing. Right? So then you have to repeat your prayer. You can't say, "Oh, I didn't know," and you just forget about it. You have to repeat your prayer then. This is a story of a sheikh, who actually ties his turban once a week on Fridays. Sorry before, but he ties his turban once a week on Fridays. So and on Fridays usually there will be this fogging. Like in Singapore, same thing, fogging, whereby they will fog the place and then animals will die, the insects will die. So on the Friday, they were fogging the place, and it so happened that one of the flies went into his turban, and died there. went to his serban and died there. So he didn't notice, and he tied his serban around his sungkuk. He tied his serban. So for 1 whole week of prayer, he prayed with that one particular serban that has a dead fly inside. So after 1 whole week, he opens up his serban and he finds a dead fly inside his serban. Right? So then he was thinking, when did this fly come into my serban? And it's a najis in my serban. Then he remembered, probably last Friday when they did the fogging, probably is when the fly came in and died in there. And so therefore, for a whole week, he had to qada his prayers. Because even though it was not his fault, but it was in a state of ignorance. He didn't know there was najis in there, but it is he must pray, he must qada his prayers. Okay, alhamdulillah. That brings us to the end of the part about najis. So we all can revise it and be very clear of what is ma'fu anhu. Okay, be very clear of najis that is ma'fu anhu. And the entire study of najis that is ma'fu anhu is very important. First and foremost, so as not to make things difficult for people. When you understand that something is ma'fu anhu, right, you know not to be so hard on people with regards to the najis. Right. Secondly, also, right, is Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad, to know about the ma'fu anhu. Right, it is that to also not be too complacent. So on two extremes. One extreme is being too strict, that every single tiny najis that you're going to be hard on people about. Right, and on the other end is to be too lenient, that all forms of najis you just don't care. Right, so to be in the middle, and with knowledge you're able to understand what matters, what does not matter. Inshallah. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Okay, going on to the next part. Shurutu thamin satrul awrah. Right, the eighth condition, covering one's self. وعورة الرجل والأمة ما بين السرة والركبة. And the aura of a man and a female slave is between the belly button and the knees. And the female slave was same aura, between the belly button and the knees. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Okay, so the word aura, let me give you the lughatan and shar'an. Okay, the word aura, lughatan, deficiency. That's not deficiency. Deficiency. You must spell CIENT, is it? It spells so long. Deficiency. Okay, that's how an-naqs in Arabic is an-naqs. What is deficient? As in lughatan, and then shar'an, what is compulsory to cover, right? To cover, and haram, and forbidden to look at. Right? Two sides towards aura. On your own aura, it is compulsory to cover. On the aura of somebody else, it is compulsory not to look at. So it's forbidden to look at. So if someone's, if someone's, aura exposed, there's a hadith, right? The one who exposes and the one who is looking at it, they are both cursed. And so to avoid looking at aura, it brings darknesses to the heart. Try your best. I know some professions, they have to always see aura, especially like nurses, and they have to always see aura of people, or doctors, it's always seeing the aura. But as far as possible, I try to avoid seeing the aura of another human being. So for the aura of a female slave and a man is between the belly button and the knees. The aura of a free woman in her prayers, and which is around man, is her entire body except for her face and two palms. Right. So here, Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. وجميع بدنها إلا الوجه والكفين. Right, and then her aura of a free woman when she's around her male mahram. Right, so and again when we go through a little bit more about the mahram, it's between her belly button and her knees. It is not to say that around your mahram you don't have to cover the top of your body. Right, but what it actually means is that, like, for example, if a woman wants to breastfeed and she's in front of her mahram, right, then like she can just lift her shirt a little bit, or unbutton a little bit to go and breastfeed. If she's comfortable enough, But usually I don't know. I think in front of your brothers, in front of your father, usually you're not that comfortable, right, to actually lift up your shirt and to breastfeed. Maybe people in the past they used to, maybe Allah alam, Allah alam. But basically, if she wears like sleeveless, if she wears, if she wears sleeveless or wears a low cut or whatsoever, in front of a mahram is not sinful for her. However, the scholars do say that if she senses a fitna from her family members, then it is on her to cover up. Right, so if a woman, and it's something to teach our girls also, if a woman were to sense that a particular family member, or uncle or cousin mahram, cousin not mahram, like uncle or stepfather or father or brother, looks at her in a particular way that is very uncomfortable. Right, so if she senses that her family member does that, and the family member is a mahram, then it becomes incumbent upon her to cover herself in front of that person. Right, so she needs to be aware of how people look at her. Right, so, and of course, the adab is that for as far as possible for women to always cover their bodies sufficiently when they're at home. Avoid wearing very tight clothing, your mahram. So you should feel shyness about it as well. You should feel shyness about it. It is unfortunate in our society of people wearing shorts at home. You cannot show between your navel to your knees to anybody except your husband. Nobody, not even your own mother, not even your own mother can see what's between your navel and your knees. Not even your own mother. But it seems that it's something that is not known in our society, that your aurat is between navel and knees to every person around you except your husband. Between husband and wife there is no aura, right? But everybody else has aura, right? So, but Allah alam, it could be the culture of society whereby when you go to school, right, the wearing of the skirt, wearing of school shorts and that kind of stuff, right, where it makes people desensitized to seeing thighs. Whereas thighs is major aura, the thighs, right, it is private parts, counted as private parts, the thighs. Alhamdulillah. Alright, and so it is better for her, right, to increase what she can cover, as much as possible, to prevent any fitnah, right, in between family members. Okay, the aura of so around her male mahram is the belly button and the knees, right? This is to make it easy for her to walk in the house, right? To basically go around the house and do work. Right? The concept of covering aura, and also the aura of between women and other women is also navel to knees, and also that is also to assist, like, for women to breastfeed. Right? So if woman and other woman, you should be covering from your navel to your knees, so that if you lift your shirt to breastfeed in front of your friends or in front of your auntie or your mother, right, that's okay. Right, because that's not your aura in front of your mother. Right, but unfortunately, that people don't cover their thighs. Right, thighs are part of your aura to your family. Okay, the conditions of covering the aura. Let me just go down to the mahram part. Footnote there. Okay, a person's mahram is someone that has blood ties or by marriage or wet nursing. And you should be able to just rattle off who are the mahram. Right? The mahram by blood ties is the exact same mahram as wet nursing. No difference whatsoever. The mahram by blood ties, they are the exact same mahram of wet nursing. And mahram means the one that you are not able to marry. It means haram to marry. It's called a mahram. It's haram to marry. You won't find the husband as one of the mahram. Because technically, by the language, husband is not mahram. You married him. You married him. Right? So how can you say he's a mahram? You marry him, kan? Right? Subhanallah. Um, yeah. Right. So the other thing is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, which is why it brings people confusion because of the part of wudu, that if you were to touch your mahram, your wudu is not nullified. Then I have some people ask the question, they say, then how come if I touch my husband is nullified? Because your husband, by definition, is not a mahram, he's a wali. Wali meaning the one who's in charge over you. He's in charge of you. Right? So you can travel to overseas with the one who's in charge over you. Right? But is he forbidden for you to marry? Of course not. You marry him. Now, mahram means forbidden to marry. Right? So mahram specifically, husband technically is not mahram. Right? But he's your wali lah. Which is why you can travel to Makkah, Medina, Hajj and Umrah. And who's your mahram? Is my husband. But what you mean is, the one who's looking after me. That's what you mean. Right, same thing. So your usual mahrams are the ones who look after you, and husband included. So he's probably a different term for it. They call it zawj, husband. It's only one guy. Nobody else has that category, has that station, of not being a mahram, at the same time, completely halal for you. In fact, more halal than anybody else. Right? Because he's the only one who can see all of your aura, and nobody else can do that. Subhanallah. Right, so naam. So by blood ties, just a refresher, by blood ties, so by fathers, right, fathers and all above. So your father, your grandfather, just remember three groups of men. Father, son, brother. Okay? You remember 3 groups of men. The fathers, the sons, and the brothers. So which fathers are mahram to you? Your father, your husband's father, your father's father, and all above. Your husband's father and all above, right? That means his grandfather and his grandfather on the same lineage, And then who else? Your stepfather is mahram to you as well. Okay, these are all. And then your nurse father. So the man whose milk it belonged to. Okay, so when a woman gets pregnant and she gives birth, the milk that's in her breast belongs to the man, right, who made her pregnant. Okay? The milk in her breast belongs to the man who made her pregnant. Of course, with marriage, there's marriage involved. Right? It belongs to the man who made her pregnant. So it's his milk. It's his milk. Right? So the child who drinks that milk is mahram to him. Okay? That makes it clear because, in case, for example, like a woman were to give, if a woman were to give birth and she has milk in her breast, and then if she's divorced, for example, she's divorced, and then she marries somebody else. So now her husband is somebody else, but that milk belongs to the previous husband, not the new husband. So if she breastfeeds someone, right, and they say, oh, her husband is mahram to you, not the new one, the old one. The old one is mahram to you, not the new one, and because the milk belongs to the old one. Okay, so you are mahram to the man to whom the milk belongs to, and because the pregnancy came from him, from his sperm. That's the technical theory of it lah. Right, so basically same thing with blood, Right, so if you are, like, for example, but stepfather is mahram lah. Stepfather is mahram. Right, so that's by marriage. Okay, so that's for the fathers. Okay, for the sons, the sons will be your son, your grandson, your spouse's son that is not your son. It means like a stepson. Right, stepsons are mahram. Your siblings' sons. Okay, that means your nephews. Your nephews are all mahram. Okay, your son-in-law. Your daughter's husband. Your son-in-law is mahram to you. Your grandson-in-law is mahram to you. So all the sons. Okay, then now comes the brothers. Right? So your brother, your half-brother, your mother's brother, your father's brother, your grandparents' brothers. These are all the brothers that are mahram to you. Okay, that's all. Brother-in-law and step-brothers are not mahram. Okay, brother-in-law and step-brothers, they are not mahram. Half-brothers, yes. because half brother you share the same parent, right? Step brothers, you don't share the same parent at all. Right? What's the difference between half brother and step brother? Very simple, right? Half brother is like this. So your mother, for example, a person's mother, marries this man. This man already has children from a previous marriage, right? So you have no blood link to these children at all, because the man's not your father, right? So you have no blood link to his children at all. You are not mahram. But if your mother marries this man, and from there they have a child, right? So now you are blood linked to this child by your mother. You share the same mother, okay? And there's a main difference between step siblings and half siblings. This is the parent that is shared, or for step siblings there is no parent that is shared. You don't share a parent. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Going back to that, just mashallah. And that's this entire issue of the mahram. I know Sheikh Musa Ferber had an app once whereby you can input, whoever you want to input, and the app will tell you if that person's your mahram or not. Because of how much he saw that people still don't get it. Who is your mahram? Subhanallah. And they're going around not sure who's mahram and not mahram. It's actually not that hard. It's really not. Inshallah, it's really not that hard. Who's your mahram? Who's your mahram? Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Alright. Okay, the conditions of covering the aura is everything that is able to prevent seeing skin color, even in the form of muddy water, not a narrow and dark tint. Right, so covering the aura, right, to prevent skin color, and to prevent skin color. So even if it's something that is very tight on the person, so someone's wearing like lycra, wearing a swimsuit, like, so you have, for example, if someone has a full body diving suit from a head to toe, and it comes right around your face, for example, and it comes right up to your wrists, and it goes all the way down to your ankles, right? And then, for example, this person says, okay, I want to just wear socks and pray, but it's completely skin tight. the diving suit is skin tight. Is the prayer valid? Yes, it's valid, but very makruh, very makruh. But the prayer is valid. If she prays that way in front of non-mahram, then the prayer is valid, but she is doing a haram thing by showing off her aurat in front of non-mahram. They're separate things, right? So she wears a full diving suit and she's praying in front of men, right, who's not her mahram. She berdosa, she's sinful for showing off her aura in shape to them. But her prayer is valid in that she covered her aura sufficiently in the context of prayer. So in the context of prayer, what needs to be covered is the color of the skin. In the context of prayer, in the context of non-mahram, right, of men out there, what needs to be covered is the color of the skin as well as the shape of the body. Right, there are two conditions, right? The shape of the body as well as the color of the skin. Right, so which is why if someone were to wear something skin tight, it's not, or even just shapely, it's not counted as she covered her aura in front of the non-mahram. So she's sinful if she were to walk in front of someone with tight clothing. Like, it's sinful because they can make out her body shape. However, if she prays in that way, like for example, someone prays in tight jeans and they wear a tight top and they're praying in that way, the prayer is valid. The prayer is valid, right? But it's just that in front of non-mahram, then dosa lah, right? Because of showing off the aurat to the non-mahram. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, the covering of the aura, right? It is not obligatory to cover the aura that is seen from underneath. Right? You must cover the aura from the top and from the sides, right? So basically, when you wear your prayer garment, right? So if the aura can be seen from underneath, from underneath the person, right? From underneath the person, right? Then the aura is considered to be not covered, right? So if the aura is able to be seen from underneath the person, then the aura is still counted to be covered. For example, you wear your normal telekung, your normal long to the ground telekung, right? Of course, the opening is at the bottom of the telekung, right? The opening is there. So of course, if someone to say, if I'm praying on a glass floor, for example, you're praying on a glass floor, and if somebody underneath, you can look up and they can see your aurat from beneath, for example. Is your aurat covered? Yes, the aurat is covered. because they're looking at you from underneath you. So your aura is covered. Okay. Sleeves. Okay, sleeves. As long as your hands are by the side, so for example, you have baggy sleeves. So if you have baggy sleeves like this, if your hands are by the side and you don't lift your hand in any way during your prayer, the outline of your arm is covered. However, the moment you raise your hands, so even if it's covered all the way up to here, right, it's going to fall up. But let's say it's going to cover up all the way up to here. So technically, your wrist is covered, right? But if you raise your hands and if someone would look in from here, you can see your arm, your aura has been exposed from the top. You've just exposed your aura from the top. Alright? So which is why, if someone has a button clothing, right? So, the buttons have gaps. Right? So she's not wearing anything underneath, like a t-shirt or something, but it's just her badan lah, her clothes, her body. Right? So that counts as the aura be able to be seen from the side, right, into the stomach of the person. Okay, same thing also like when you wear your telekong, right, and you wear short sleeves. This is a short, right? So you see when you move in this garment, right, someone who's sitting next to you, not below you but next to you. So she's not beneath you, she's just next to you, right? As you move, right, the arms on the inside of beneath the telekong can be seen. And you've probably seen that if you sit in the masjid, you might have seen people who wear these short sleeves, and then they wear the telekong, and as they rukuk, technically when you rukuk, right, because you put your hands on your knees, your entire arm is let me just draw it lah, show what I mean. Okay, if someone is doing rukuk, this is the body, the face of the person, right, down. So where are her knees? Her knees are here. Alright, she's doing rukuk. So she puts her hands here. Okay, maybe she wears short sleeve. Okay, and so she puts her hands on her knees. Okay. So if a telekong were to fly in front like that, right? Most people, the telekong comes up to here. Right? Most people, the telekong comes up to the bottom. It's very rare the telekong actually goes beyond the knees when you rukuk. It's rare. Most people, when they stand up straight, the telekong is beyond the knees. Correct? And then there's like this. But when they rukuk, most people, the telekong comes up to it won't hit the knees. It will be above the knees. Right? Most people will be above the knees. So because it's above the knees, technically, right, this person, and the hands are on the knees, if someone were to be seated here, right, behind her, and this person is not beneath her, she's beside her. See that? It's from the side. It's from the side. So this person can directly see the aurat of an individual. That means the aurat is being exposed from the side. Right? The aurat is being exposed from the side, behind the person, but it's not from beneath, it's from behind. Right? So unless someone has like has a telekong that is really like super long, then that will be the Yemeni one lah. The Yemeni one is okay, because the Yemeni one, it has sleeves anyway, right? Right? So you're completely covered. It's to the ground. So no matter how you ruko or you sujud or anything, no problem. Right? But you have even seen people who wear this kind of halfway telekongs, that even when you sujud, what happens? Maybe out of time. What time is supposed to reach? Ayun, remind me. Okay, pause. I didn't notice. Okay, sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammadin. So engrossed in the lesson. Go to your next class. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammadin wa ala alihi wasallam walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. More present. Hawla wala quwwata illa billah. Apologize to Alima for me. Dah I really tak perasan.